Hey, it's Monday. Welcome. We are almost at time flies, even if you're not having fun. But yeah, we're almost at the end of September. And this is the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. And, look, the 49ers, I'm going to talk about the media coverage of the game and try to formulate an opinion or two on how crappy the post game shows have become and pregame, but they've always been that way. Now they're a little bit more crappier than they used to be for a variety of reasons. First off, the Bay Area is home to social news, and sporting news and all. The 49ers are real big, arguably the number one team in the Bay Area. Even when the Raiders were here and the Raiders were winning, and this was years and years before they came back, 49ers pretty big. So consequently, they have assorted media that wraps around them. And they evolve in these they're basically PR shows, folks. That's what they are. They're PR shows that use the 49ers as a client, and the 49ers use these cable shows and these radio shows as an addendum to their overall media package, not the football team. Of course, everything centers on the football team, but as a PR device, 49ers, and it's not just them, but all the NFL teams, they go hand in hand. But most NFL teams have very cogent and very functional people working after the game or before the game. And they have commentators and they do analysis and they talk about what we all witnessed, whether you were at the game, but mostly people who watched the game on television. Now, let's be real. The 49ers performed rather horrifically on Sunday. They didn't put away a team that they clearly were better than, well, maybe not clearly, but they should have put away a team that was missing a lot of key players, skilled players, et cetera, and also playing down in LA, where lots of 49ers flock to that stadium and they take over the venue. And it sounds, as it did on Fox, if you watched the game, it sounded as if it was a damn 49ers home game, which it was not. Anyway, I don't want to talk much about the game. They lost the game. It's early. These people who are supposed to be experts who panic and start talking as if, the sky is falling. This is clearly a decent team. They're not very great. They weren't really good last week. They were good the first week. The NFL and its talent pool has been diluted. Even the greatest team, Kansas City, they could be beat on a bad day. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about these frauds that appear on both television and radio. And these shows have been going on for years. And now, particularly in this market, they are putrid, much like the 49ers were on Sunday. So let's first start with the TV end on cable, and then we'll go over to radio. And we'll greet my favorite punching bag, which is KNBR. On television, the 49ers have a pre- and post-game show on NBC Sports Bay Area. And the host is Carlos Ramirez. And then they have a guy named Rod Brooks. And then they have a former player, a former jock, who's a pretty good analyst, Dante Whitner. But these guys who are supposed to provide some degree of analysis and give you, an honest synopsis of what took place, they're fanboys. They're fanboys. This Ramirez, Carlos Ramirez, is only there, folks, if you watch the show. And if you don't, you're not missing anything. He fills in all the boxes. He's not particularly bright. He's not particularly analytical. He's kind of like a guy that's, stews his mood, so to speak, in this case, after a loss, as opposed to giving you a somewhat of a breakdown as to why did they lose, or try to be, as if you're doing something involving news, although this involves sports. Carlos Ramirez is a monumental joke, as is Rod Brooks. Rod Brooks kept saying yesterday, Sunday, when the 49ers lost, they should have run the ball. They should have run the ball. Okay. And later on, well, they should have run the ball. He seemed agitated. He seemed angry. I have no idea why. And worst of all, this guy Brooks, he kept interrupting Dante Whitner, who played the game but is analytical, does give you cogent reasons as to why, his opinion, of course, but he's got credibility. He used to play and he knows his stuff for the most part, kept trying to talk. And either Brooks, who kept saying they had to run the ball and making these nonsensical comments, or the other moron, Mr. Ramirez, kept interrupting Whitner. So you have that mishmash. And again, folks, these are PR shows. They don't break down anything other than a voluminous amount of sports minutia. They don't say anything. They don't say anything concrete. And there's too much talk. And then they have another PR guy at the game itself. And it's like fanboys talking to one another and screaming at each other after the game. All they needed was a couple of bottles of beer. Then I migrated over to radio on KNBR, which is the flagship station for the 49ers. And, Greg Papa does the play-by-play along with Tim Ryan. And Papa's just completely talk about fanboy. He's a waste of time. He's ridiculous. His screams, his yelling, his stupid, cute, which he thinks is cute, pet names and nicknames, and just bizarre, frankly, play-by-play. It is, without a doubt, one of the worst broadcast teams. It's a shame, too, because his partner, Papa's partner, this Tim Ryan, all he does is act, talk about a fanboy. He screams, he yells out nonsensicals. It's like two guys that are there watching their favorite team play. They don't offer anything. And the worst thing is, Ryan does know football. He used to play it too. He is analytical, but he's more interested in screaming and yelling about the 49ers. These guys don't give you anything. There's no spot-on analysis. It's all done as if you have two fans up in the booth, which clearly they are up in the broadcast booth, but they don't say they are. And then you have I love this, the post-game show, and which they sort of diluted a little bit. Then they got rid of one guy, this Dennis Brown, who I guess used to be a player for the 49ers in the 90s. All of a sudden, he's gone. I wasn't a big Dennis Brown fan, but now we have moron one, a guy by the name of Adam Copeland, or as I call him, Copy Copes, Copes Dopes, Copamopes. He likes to use Copes, and they call him Copes, and it's Copes and Copes and Copes and Copes. His real name is Adam Copeland. I guess they want to call him Copes because that sounds really hip. And he's paired with one of the biggest imbeciles in the history of modern radio, John Lund, or do we call him Johnny Lund, or Greg Papa's favorite radio guy. He does the show with Greg Papa on KNBR. But this imbecile, this moron who talks in sequences that make no sense, and he and Copy Copes, they don't give you any analysis of what took place. Oh, they're trying their best. But again, folks, all they do is lament as if they are fans, which they are. They don't give you any insight. They don't provide any analysis. They don't talk to players immediately after the game. Oh, sure, they take a feed with the coach who says nothing. Then they go down to Los Angeles and click in with a couple of other fanboys, basically. A guy by the name of Larry Kruger, a KNBR retread, whom they hired back because they needed somebody to fill whatever role they viewed this as, and they gave him $100 a shot. Anyway, they flew him and this other useless tweed, John Dickinson, they call the super reporter. What? What super reporter? You mean the mayonnaise and mustard reports that he provided that he ate in the press box down in LA on his hamburger? Look, folks, KNBR is hurting. They have a trade out with an airline company. So they flew these guys down, and they're supposed to give us their real astute analysis, but they don't. It is just plain old guys, and they're guys who do nothing, who don't give you any insight, don't provide any analysis, don't give you any kind of cogent breakdown of what they should be breaking down. And look, they're fans. They are fans. All they need is to put their hat on and put a Joe Montana jersey on or Brock Purdy. They're basically fans. They don't give you anything other than this rah bravado that makes no sense. And that's what KNBR is after 49ers games. They repeat stuff that doesn't make any sense. They give you a kind of a mono of nothing. And then you have Lund, who's useless, and Kopi Copes, who's useless. It's a fan broadcast. And let me tell you this, which is kind of funny. They almost act as if they were playing the game, these radio it heads. They weren't playing. They're down there eating their hot dogs and hamburgers and munching on their popcorns to ostensibly give a honest insight as to what took place. We all watched it. We all know what took place. They're supposed to be better than that. They're supposed to give you the expert opinion. Folks, you're the experts. You can give and provide just as useful information as they can. They give you this. It's all bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. It's, again, fanboys who have a microphone after the game, and all they say is bullshit. It's all this sports chatter mixed with 49ers, and they get the lunch pack guys. They get the guys who watch the games, and that's all they expect from these shows. These shows are putrid. They are awful. The pregame shows, they're even worse because all it is just this montage of fan day, barbecue, what's going to happen, and this is the keys to the game. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They make it sound as if they want you to believe that they're experts. Nah, they're not experts. Oh, they may think like they're experts, but they're not. These shows have become a joke. Well, they've always been a joke, but now, in the old days, at least they had good people working. Now they have schmucks and putzes working, fanboys. And when one of the fanboys is actually decent and says something worth listening to, he gets interrupted. I'm talking now back to television on NBC Sports, Bay Area. What an absolute pile of shit that show is, with three of the worst. But at least Whitner tries to break it down, tries to give a fundamental analysis, but gets interrupted by a guy who says nothing and is only there because, well, he checks all the boxes too, if you know what I mean. So, look, 49ers, I'm not a fan. I don't root against them. My whole thing is watching these shows and trying to understand the situation of commentators and hosts who clearly do not know what the hell they're talking about, and thus you have the shit shows that have become the norm. And that's sad. Hey, I'm Rich Lieberman. We'll see you later today. Don't forget, join me. Subscribe to YouTube. Make a contribution. Make sure that this show is vital. We are live. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.